informational work. Today we have one of our probation partners, TRAC Solutions, who will be doing a presentation for us. Just a bit of housekeeping before we go get started with the presentation here. This info workshop will be recorded, and then the recording will be circulated to this group afterwards. And then as far as questions, if you have a question, please feel free to use the chat function on Zoom. Katie and I will be monitoring it. And we can flag your question for our presenters here. And you can also feel free to interject, use the raise hand function, and then we'll be sure to take questions throughout the presentation. And then we'll also leave space at the end if there are any questions or comments about any of the content discussed today. Alrighty, so that's it with housekeeping. So with that, I will introduce the team at TRAC Solutions. Brian and Jackie, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you.
Great, thanks, Nikki. Brian?
Yeah, sure. So I'll add a little bit of context here. My name's Brian Kramer. I'm the Business Development Manager at TRAC Solutions. I do cover the Western United States. Prior to that, I have worked many years with the Michigan Department of Corrections within the correctional facilities before I ventured out as a parole officer in Detroit and Flint, Michigan. And my final landing spot was in the state of Arizona in Pinal County. Held multiple positions: officer, court liaison officer, supervisor, before I finished as a manager. So I believe I'm in the right spot today with this group. I can definitely relate, and I look forward to giving you guys the rundown with TRAC Solutions, the transdermal, and the GPS. Jackie?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So I'm Jackie Sheehy, and I'm Vice President of Business Development for TRAC Solutions. As Brian mentioned, actually, I stole Brian away from Pinal County. I had worked with Brian in the past, and when this opportunity came around for him to become our Business Development Manager for the West, which obviously is California, I immediately talked with him, and here he is. My background, I have been in the field of criminal justice for 26 years. Started off as a consultant to NADCP, now All Rise, and then moved over to the private side in the drug and alcohol testing industry. And prior to TRAC Solutions, I was actually at AberHealth, and prior to that, Smart Start. So I've been around for a while, and I'm very, very happy and excited to be a part of CPOC and for us to share with you what we have to offer at TRAC Solutions. Thanks, Brian. First slide. Yep. So to give you all a little bit of background on the company. So TRAC Solutions has actually been around 20 plus years. Our founder, Bob Nienhaus, was actually a SCRAM provider in the state of Illinois. He also helped with alcohol monitoring systems and doing consulting when SCRAM first launched SCRAM-CAM 20 plus years ago. And then Bob grew his service provider in the state of Illinois to being one of the largest SCRAM providers, and really focusing in on how can we develop the best type of monitoring program, not only for the participants, but also for the agencies. In 2016, Bob, I always like to say, he went on this worldwide tour because he said, I've now worked with not only SCRAM as well as many other GPS devices. I know what works well. I know what I'd like to change. And he went to China, India, in the US, excuse me, and he brought together a team of engineers and developed stigma-free wrist-worn devices. And so today what we're going to talk about are our TRAC Watch device and our TRAC GPS device. Okay, Brian, thanks. Next slide. So as we all know, stigmatization is rampant with a lot of our clients. We all know how ankle monitors, someone sees an ankle monitor and immediately they think, oh my gosh, sex offender, domestic violence case, when it could potentially be an alcohol monitoring device. It obviously affects not just that participant, it's affecting their family, it's affecting their employer, their people they work with, the public. I can tell you about probably 8 months ago, I was on a flight and I was in an airport, and across from me was a young couple in their 20s, and a woman was coming down the aisle with a stroller, a baby obviously in it, and she had an ankle monitor on, and this girl said, "Oh my gosh, look at that woman. She has a baby and she has an ankle monitor on." So of course it took almost everything for me to just keep my mouth shut and not say anything, right? But we've also seen, I know in the 26 years I've been in the field, we've gone from being much more punitive to more therapeutic. We have also focused on how do we get rid of that stigmatization of the language. If, for example, we want someone to remain an addict, we call them an addict. If we want them to remain an offender, we call them an offender. So the whole focus of TRAC Solutions was to really take and move from something that looks more punitive, but that is still secure, but gives that stigma-free side to the participant and isn't like the scarlet letter of public humiliation. A couple quotes that we've had from some of our participants, we don't even think about it in the dead of summer. Man, I can't wait to go home and put some shorts on. Or, wow, I can get in the pool and I can keep my arm out with the watch on, but I can still get in a pool with my kids. Next slide. So this is what our watch looks like. Brian, I know you've got yours in your hand and I've got mine.
Like Apple Watch.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure. Natasha, did you have a question?
No, I'm so sorry. I accidentally hit my audio. My apologies.
Oh, no worries.
No
You're
worries.
fine. Okay, thank you. So our watch, it looks very much like an Apple Watch, as you can see on this slide. It is very similar to the Series 9 Apple Watch, which I'm sure many people have. Our whole goal was to have it look comfortable, but have it also offer security, the type of tamper sensors that are necessary for that security, but also offer comfortability. So it's very discreet. So both the TRAC Watch, which is transdermal, and the TRAC GPS look very similar. They are two separate watches. Next. There is built into the watch 3 steel braided cables that go through the strap. And those 3 steel braided cables, are consumer grade, and they allow for the overall security. There are built-in tamper detectors in the band, and that's going to obviously deliver that overall security, but allowing for comfortability for the participant. Next. I think one of the big things I've heard over the years is how many times officers are bothered by getting false strap alerts. And so at TRAC Solutions, for our TRAC Watch, next slide, and TRAC GPS, we have eliminated false strap alerts. The band itself is fully integrated into the watch. So it is not having to be fitted with different size straps. It is fully integrated and it eliminates the false strap alerts. Next slide. I know that there are many times issues around damaged charging cables. And so what we've done, next slide, is we have created a magnetic charging port that is on the side of the watch, as you can see here on the slide. And it is a 6-foot charging cable. It has a USB port, so it can be put into a laptop, into a car. It can be put into a plug outlet. And then on the very end, there is the magnet that simply clicks into the side. So if the participant is sitting watching TV and they forget they have it charging, they get up, it simply separates, and no issues with any type of a damaged charging cable. The other thing I want to mention for both devices, the TRAC Watch for transdermal and TRAC GPS, you will notice like I'm holding the watch up and it looks black, the front, but it actually is camouflaged as a watch. So it is set to the time zone of the participant. So if someone says, hey, really cool watch, what time is it? They click the side of it and the time will show. Okay, thanks, Brian. Next. So specific to TRAC Watch, this is the transdermal device of ours. And so what I want to cover with all of you is to really hone in on it as an alcohol monitoring device. It is transdermal. I think everyone is very familiar. I always loved to toot the horn of Scram. 20 plus years ago when I was around, I remember it being launched. They did a phenomenal job with having to get Frey-Daubert hearings. They did peer-reviewed research. They did a NHTSA study because obviously it was a new technology that was being brought into the criminal justice field. So our device is the same technology. You know, the last peer-reviewed research that was done was 2017, and those peer-reviewed research studies that are done are solely focused around that specific technology. What we've done is we have used the transdermal technology, but we have added features that make it different from our competitor. I also want to say how when you look at continuous alcohol monitoring compared to breath, big difference. You know, obviously, as you heard me say, I came from Smart Start where I had been for a number of years, obviously ignition interlock, breath devices, but I have to say that continuous alcohol monitoring truly does surpass breath technology. I feel that our participants many times look at breath as a IQ test. They know when their scheduled tests are going to take place. They'll drink around those scheduled test times. They know how much they can consume, when they need to stop to get below that industry standard or the threshold of a 0.02. So I remember Scram did a study several years ago where they talked about this, and they said how in a day's time, someone with a breath test and scheduled test windows, they could potentially have anywhere from like 10 to 14 drinks without us finding out. So the whole idea behind transdermal continuous alcohol monitoring is simply going to allow us to know that that participant is being monitored 24/7. With our device, TRAC Watch, we're taking a reading every 10 minutes compared to our competitor taking a reading every 30 minutes. So that doesn't mean we're giving you more accurate data, but what we are giving you is better data so that there are more readings taking place in a shorter amount of time. So if you say like for 1 hour, ours is taking a reading, we're getting 6 readings in an hour's time. And with our competitor, you're getting 2. So we're going to be able to confirm an alcohol consumption by having more data in that shorter window of time when our data analysts go and review the data for possible alcohol consumptions. And so that's kind of the background around our device, but it being transdermal with different features. Next, Brian. Battery swap appointments, not with TRAC Watch. We don't have to worry about doing a battery swap every 90 days. Next slide, please. With our device, you have a rechargeable battery. It is a single charge. It lasts for 90 days. Now, ideally, they have to pair this with a smartphone. So obviously, that's going to allow for that longer battery life. But ideally, a 90-day battery life. What we tell the participants when they come and get an installation done is, you know, once a month, set your alarm on your phone so you have a recurring alarm go off and just charge it for an hour. So you keep it at that 90-day battery life. But literally, it will last on a single charge for 90 days. Next. We have a built-in vibration motor that's built into the TRAC Watch for alcohol. And what that does, it's just simply giving the participant a reminder that they need to charge their battery. So when it gets to a 20% battery life, that's about 10 days remaining. And they're going to get a vibration every 15 minutes as a reminder. They're told about this at the time of installation. Program rules, we go over with them. They have to initial. And then when it gets to a 10% battery life, that's what we consider critically low. That's about 5 days remaining. So still a good amount of time. But Vibration will still occur every 15 minutes, but whoever the supervising officer is, that is who will also get an alert notification that they have a critically low battery. Within our device, we also have added for the TRAC Watch push notifications that will go out on the app on their phone. And it will basically be a reminder you need to charge your battery or you are in a non-com situation. So we have really tried to think of what are the important things that we can give the participant as reminders for them to be successful. And those push notifications will say, hey, your Bluetooth isn't connected. And let me add to this. Even if they're in a non-com situation, the watch continues to work. It is taking data, like I said, every 10 minutes. They are getting alcohol readings. It's almost similar to Scram, where a participant has a base station at home and they're not going to be able to upload data till they get back home at the end of the day. But with our device, it's all in real time. So taking those readings every 10 minutes. But if they're in a non-com situation, the watch is still working. It just won't upload until they're back in a communication range or back with their phone. Next slide. This is what the app looks like. So the steps that are involved with the transdermal is that the client gets enrolled on our web portal, basic demographics, assignment of a serial number for the watch, which is found right on the back of the watch. And once that happens, it's activated. So that starts the clock ticking for the daily charge. And then after that, they get fitted with the watch for comfortability, but most importantly for the transdermal, as I'm sure you all know, the sensors are right here on the back. So the watch has to be fitted on the wrist. I don't want to say snugly, but to the point where we don't want it moving any wider than the width of the strap in either direction, and nor do we want it rotating around the wrist. That sensor needs to be near the skin to be able to pick up the alcohol measurements from that insensible perspiration. So that's really, really important. Once the watch is fitted on the wrist and we ensure the comfortability with the participant, the very final stage is we have them go to their, if they have an Android or if they have an iPhone, they'll go to the Google Play Store or they'll go to the Apple Store and they will download our app, which is TRAC Monitor. And that is what you see here. And what we're looking for is that the watch has paired with their phone. So we look for the connection, we look at the serial number, as you can see there, and the timestamp, as well as what the battery status is. So the participant will be able to look and see their battery status right here on the app on their phone. Okay, next, Brian. There is a built-in Bluetooth chip within the TRAC Watch. So this is really allowing for that uninterrupted communication from the watch over to their smartphone. Now, I get asked the question many times, okay, so what if they leave their phone and they go to work and they leave their phone? I mentioned earlier how I know with Scram, they have a base station, but with ours, if they should leave their phone somewhere, the watch is still working. It is still taking alcohol readings. And until they get back in range with their phone, that is when the data will upload. They will also get a vibration that reminds them that, oh, wait, I'm not in range with my phone and I need to get back in range. Next
Jackie,
slide.
can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
On the pairing the device with a smartphone, what if the individual doesn't have a smartphone? Do they still get the battery life notifications via the vibration and the notifications that way?
Yeah. They have to have a smartphone.
Okay.
So if there is a situation, and we have had this happen, it's not much, but we have had the case where we have actually provided the smartphones for the clients.
Okay, thank you for the information.
You're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Nikki. So I know many times we hear how, oh my gosh, we've had to wait days, or you have a judge that is saying, when are we going to find out what the results are for this participant? Next slide, Brian. I know with working with evidence-based practices over the years, We obviously want to be swift and certain with making sure we're getting results within a good 48-hour window so that we can truly affect behavior change. With ours, as you heard me mention earlier, our data is received in real time. So the way it works, as I mentioned, it's taking a reading every 10 minutes. It is real-time data. So we're not having to wait until they get back to a base station to download. And the data is confirmed within 24 hours. Our team of data analysts meet every morning. They review possible alcohol consumptions, they review tampers, and then those violations are then sent out to that agency and whomever the supervising officer is in a 24-hour window. Next, thank you. So to wrap up on just TRAC Watch transdermal, key things about it. Obviously, the discrete design, the fact that it is stigma-free, and I think I can't begin to tell all of you, and I know you can probably relate to all of this, but you know, I've been in probation departments where we're working and we see clients with the TRAC Watch on, and then I see others that have an ankle monitor, and I've heard conversations where, hey, where did you get that watch? You know, and the person will say, oh, it's my alcohol monitoring watch. I need to get that watch. And they will go to their probation officer and say, how can I switch over to that watch? I want that watch. So it's really interesting to hear the conversations. We had a situation with a customer of ours in Dallas County in Texas, and it was a veterans treatment court. The judge had met me at All Rise last year and loved the watch, and all of her veterans had scram on their ankle, and she had a participant who he had lost his job. His employer fired him because he saw the ankle monitor and immediately assumed what I mentioned in the beginning. So she called me and said, Jackie, when can you get to Dallas? I want to switch all of my participants over to TRAC Watch. So myself and my operations director, we went and we did the swap out. And to hear the clients, I have to say, it was really enlightening because they were so excited. And one guy said, oh my gosh, now I've got these cool pants in my closet and I can start to wear them because they were tighter fitting and I couldn't get it over my ankle monitor. And another one brought up the fact of shorts because, you know, Texas weather is pretty hot. And so it was really great to do that and to see the fact of how important it was for this judge about having stigma-free devices within her program. Once again, to wrap up, frequent readings. We're taking readings every 10 minutes versus every 30. So you're getting more data for us to be able to confirm an alcohol consumption. Our confirmation process is exactly the same as Scram. So we will not have any false positives. We will confirm when we have 3 consecutive readings that are at a 0.02 or greater, and then we will confirm that alcohol consumption. The data, 24 hours, like I said, we're obviously meeting with evidence-based practices so we can affect behavior change. And lastly, a 90-day battery life. So those are the key features of our transdermal device. Any questions before I have Brian go on to the GPS? Okay. All right, Brian.
All right, thank you, Jackie. I appreciate it. So with the TRAC GPS, you guys will see a lot of similarities to that of the transdermal TRAC Watch. But to get into some of the basics, the LTE cellular triangulation, essentially what that is saying is that is a method used to determine the location of a device, and how it goes about doing that is it analyzes the signal strength from multiple nearby towers. It then will effectively create what we refer to as that triangle, if you will, of possible locations in order to pinpoint a device's approximate location. Cell tower triangulation is similar to GPS tracking in many ways. And what I mean by that is there's the multiple towers are used to track the device's location, and it does that by measuring the delay that a signal actually takes in order to return back to the towers from the device. As we wrap that up, that delay is then calculated into a distance in order to give an accurate location or waypoint of that particular device. The GPS does work off Wi-Fi communication. In regards to maybe a higher risk, higher need individual or a judge ordering more confinement, if you will, for an offender, we do offer a Wi-Fi beacon, I'm sorry, for house arrest purposes. The TRAC GPS also has non-volatile memory. And just to really put that into layman terms, that's basically just a type of computer memory that is in both our wrist-worn transdermal and our TRAC GPS. And what it does is it retains stored information, even if the power is removed from either device. We have a 30-day onboard storage in the GPS, as well as the ability to set inclusion and exclusion zones. I've had sex offender caseloads in the past, DV offender caseloads in the past. I'll be honest, I haven't really saw more than like 4 inclusion or exclusion zones set. However, in the event that a participant would need additional inclusion or exclusion zones set, it would just be a matter of the officer or representative from the agency or department reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to set more inclusion or exclusion zones. I'm sorry, I'm going to back up real quick. One last thing that we now have, we also have what we refer to as a TRAC status app, or better known as the Survivor app. This is to alert victims. This is set up with proximity alerts, and what it does is it creates a zone around the survivor. So, for example, if I'm the survivor and I'm out at the mall shopping, and if the client being monitored gets near me, that zone that is created around me will then notify me, let me know that the client being monitored is near me. Rechargeable battery. I know Jackie touched on it for the transdermal. With the GPS, the rechargeable battery life lasts 48 plus hours. I'll hone in a little bit on the plus side of that. Most recent field testings have our battery upwards of 54 to 56 hours on a single charge. That single charge is approximately 2 to 3 hours. So good practice is, I know before I left the probation department in Arizona, we had brought the TRAC Watch and GPS into Pinell County. And one good thing that we tried to do with the clients is just tell them, hey, when you're done with your job and you get home, plug in for 2-3 hours, you're good to go. That way they had no issues with the battery status whatsoever. Also with our device, you're going to see less drift in clusters and a much better accuracy compared to our competitor. The TRAC GPS also houses a vibration motor. It has a built-in speaker as well. When that battery begins to deplete on the TRAC GPS and gets at 20%, there is going to be a vibration as well as an audio prompt at the 20% mark. Once we get down and continue to deplete, we're going to get down to the 10% range, which again, like Jackie mentioned earlier, this is the critically low aspect of the battery. You're not only going to get that vibration, but you're going to get an audio prompt, and an alert notification is going to be sent to the supervising officer or the administrator who is set up in the web portal. The cool part about the audio prompt at the 10% level is the voice is really, truly, indeed sounds like Morgan Freeman. So as you can imagine, that's pretty cool to be able to hear Morgan's voice, in my opinion. Okay, again, just as a recap, voice prompts. We're going to get the voice prompts and, the vibration prompts when the battery is critically low, when there are exclusion or inclusion zone violations, or if the device is tampered with in any way whatsoever. Dual frequency GPS is a technology where a GPS receiver simultaneously receives signals from two different frequency bands. I won't go into, I guess, the science of it, but those frequency bands are related to the L1 and L5 satellites that are in the sky. And what it does is it significantly improves positioning accuracy compared to your standard single frequency GPS. And why that's important is because in challenging environments such as dense forests, mountainous areas, urban areas, what it does is it mitigates signal interference and it corrects for what is known as ionospheric delay. So essentially, to put that in more standard terms, what it's saying is that it provides a more precise location by utilizing information from multiple signal sources. Most ankle monitoring competitors, I know I've hooked, I can't, all of them up at this point between parole and probation, not only as an officer, supervisor, and manager, but they connect to what they refer to as the big two when it comes to GPS, the big two being Verizon and AT&T. At TRAC Solutions, not only do we connect to the big two, and I think this is where this separates our GPS from the rest of the market, we also have the ability to connect to an additional 7 towers. And as you can see here on this slide, we use T-Mobile, Sprint, US Cellular, Boost Mobile, TRAC Phone, Metro PCS, so on and so forth. And having the ability to connect to an additional 7 helps us out with that penetration through those urban areas, dense forest, mountainous areas. And finally, we have a web portal. And again, Probation Brain speaking here. I've been in and I've worked with a lot of web portals. Some that really confused me in the past because, we don't log in as often as we should or what have you. What I can say about TRAC Solutions web portal, it's a single sign-on. It is super user friendly. You go into it, on the first page, we load in the demographic information. Once the demographic information is loaded in, we click through a couple other screens, we hit an activate button, and we are essentially good to go. Obviously, when it comes to the web portal, we usually go more in depth about the web portal during the onboarding process and the training that Jackie and I deliver. So that is the TRAC GPS presentation. Is there any questions? Awesome.
Nikki, are we able to open it up for people to their audio so that they can ask anything?
Yeah. And then Brian, if you want to stop sharing so we can look at see if there are any questions here. Thank you both for the presentation. We appreciate it. I did have a question about Jackie, earlier you mentioned something about the TRAC Solution staffs and data analysts kind of gather info and then send that over. And I believe it was like a 24-hour period. Is that and then they send that over to the agency. So if probation staff have a question or they need an answer, is the web portal the place where they'd be able to gather that information?
It varies, Nikki, based on how we have different models that we provide. So in some cases, we may have, let me use an example. Let's just say it's a treatment court. I know in California, they're called collaborative courts. And if it's small enough, many times because of them using grant funding, that they will want to do their own installations. So then they're given access to the web portal. We teach them how to do the installs. They have the inventory and they would be doing their own monitoring. But in cases where you have much larger departments, especially when you look at probation, pretrial. It's many times where we're doing the installations, we're doing the monitoring, and then we are sending any violations off to whomever the supervising officer is. And then as far as pricing goes, I just saw a question come up, cost per day. So varying prices, obviously TRAC Watch transdermal. If it is agency pay, that's roughly anywhere based on volume, $5 to $6.50 a day. If it is TRAC GPS, it's anywhere from $250 a day up to what, $350, isn't it, Brian?
Yeah.
And then, of course, if it's participant pay versus agency pay, there's about $3 more added per day, because obviously any company out there, you have to add a little bit more when it is participant pay, self-pay, just to ensure, the payment is being made, that the devices hopefully aren't lost, that type of thing. But as far as any of that, so like I mentioned, when we talk about the different models, and you asked Nikki about, data being sent over. So essentially, with TRAC Watch, the alcohol, the transdermal. So there are alerts that go out if there is a, quote, possible alcohol consumption, and algorithms that obviously set that up. And then our data analysts every morning review all those possible alcohol consumptions. And based on obviously the review and looking at absorption rates, the peak, the burn off, they will determine if there are 3 consecutive readings at a 0.02 or greater, then it would be a confirmed consumption, and a violation report is sent out to the supervising officer. So that's how all that works.
Oh, I was on mute. That's all super helpful. Thanks for
You're
all the
welcome.
Yeah, and then I think you covered the question in the chat.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for the group here? Anything else that you both wanted to add, Brian or Jackie?
I just want to say thanks. We're pleased to be a member of CPOC, as Jackie mentioned at the very beginning, and we have started to explore partnerships in California. I know to both Jackie and myself, recovery in general, recovery courts are near and dear to our hearts. Myself having had the opportunity in the past to start the Veterans Treatment Court from the ground up. Was very much a humbling experience, but it was also extremely rewarding. So I'd just like to take a second to say thank you to all of California for allowing us on the platform today to deliver our presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. And yeah, I want to just second that. I want to thank you all for taking the time, especially on a Friday afternoon. I know you're a little bit earlier in time than I am in Texas, but thank you all so very, very much. And if you have any interest, any questions, Nikki, I think we can provide information where they can get in touch with Brian. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can circulate that after the call to the
Okay, perfect.
I also want to flag there's a question in the chat. Is there a cost to have it sitting on the shelf?
There is actually, we allow a 20% shelf allotment at no charge of whatever the active number of devices are on the shelf. 20% would be at no charge. Yeah. And just to kind of wrap up my part that I was just saying a little bit ago, yeah, I really want to thank all of you. You know, we have been in many other states. We are really starting to penetrate California now. And we are actually working in a DUI collaborative court in Fresno County, and we are just going to be starting in Alpine County as well. So we're really excited. We've submitted some RFPs, and we're just really tapping the surface, but we really want to start really getting into California. So any questions that you all have, again, Brian Kramer, I can actually put this on the recording. It's BK at TRAC, TRAC TRACmonitor.com. And Brian, do you want to also shout out your cell phone number for everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. So my contact telephone number is 480-999-4444. 2334.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, and we're more than happy to do virtual presentations. We can come in person and set up a lunch and learn with your staff. You know, I think there's always something to be said about the touch and the feel versus seeing something virtually. So you just need to get in touch with Brian, and we'll be more than happy to answer any further questions or to come in and do any kind of a presentation with you. Oh, I also want to lastly say, see, I keep having something, Nikki. One more thing. We also have a GSA contract vehicle. So I know always the big hassle around having to put an RFP out there, but just so you know, we do have a GSA contract vehicle if that would eliminate having to put out an RFP, if there is interest. And thank you again, all of you, for taking the time with us. We really appreciate it.
Yes,
And
thank you.
Nikki and Katie, thanks again as well.
Of course. Thank you for the presentation and for everything.